Joe, what's the difference between a hooker and a drug dealer?
What?
A hooker can wash her crack afterwards and resell it.
Ha ha. Ha. Ha ha. You kill me.
What is the didn't the FBI kill Alf after? Did we establish that Alf met his demise?
It was left open.
Okay. Like his chest cavity. Anyways.
Ha! I'm being autopsied.
Nicely done.
You kill me.
Now, what is the difference between a hooker and your job? No, you're hooker. Your job is a hooker. So let's try that again.
Whoopsie daisies.
What is the difference
Dying is
between
easy.
your job and a dead hooker?
What?
Your job still sucks.
Ah. Waka, waka, waka.
Welcome to Carnival Personnel. I'm Jacques.
Hi, everybody. Ha. Oh, wait, that's Bert. I went from Fozzie to Bert. Here's my impersonation. I have three voices.
Okay.
I have Bert. I have Fozzie. And I have Ray Romano. Oh.
Hey, that's pretty good.
There you go.
The Fozzie was pretty right on.
Right, I know. My Bert really does blow.
No, see,
well, you know,
that's you. That's you. I say, hey, this impression is great, and you immediately go, yeah, because that one sucked. No.
I mean, he blows. He's gay. Like,
you know what?
That's how I interpret him.
He's not gay. Ernie is. He keeps his eyes open. He pretends he doesn't like it. How can
are they children? I forget now. Are they? Because they live alone. I think they're adults. I think they're adults, but like one is childlike.
And they have the I Love Lucy twin bed set in the room.
Thank God. I mean, what do you want them to have, the king size? So
yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't want him to have either. We've talked about gay puppets way too long right now, or allegedly gay puppets.
Who knows?
Anyways, how are you, Joe?
Oh, I'm fine. This is Carnival Personnel,
and we are. We're going to skip a lot. Not the best week here in the great city of Boston. We won't even get into why it's not. We'll just say it's not and move on to happier times. So as of this posting, we are just 4 days away from Dan Crane Beyond It playing with the Rationales at Sally O'Brien's in Somerville. I just this week got a cassette recorder that's meant to make you can plug it into your computer and make digital copies of cassettes, which is great because I think recently I found like 20 old id tapes and stuff like that.
Cool.
First tape that I just pulled out of the thing was from a show June 6th, like a week ago. A week ago from today.
Who cares?
Minus 13 years or 23 years. Either way.
Wait a second. Stephen Hawking couldn't figure out that formula you just laid out. What are you talking about?
We
what date was
played it June 6th, 1996. We played at the Rat.
Wow.
And it's just an audio cassette, but I know you were part of the show because you were playing
was I playing bass?
You were playing guitar, actually. And you were and seriously, when when I finally get a chance to figure out how to make it work in the digital space, you truly got the bigger round of applause after each and every song. When Dan would say, Joe Lourenco, it's like, it's seriously, you brought the house down.
Woohoo.
Do you remember that Rat show?
I think so. Are you blaming me for the Rat being closed?
I
brought the house down. That was literally the last show that played at the Rat Skeller?
I think that was. That or TT the Bears were my two favorite places to play.
I remember I played at TT's with you
guys.
It.
And seriously, this is when, I feel like the beginning of Spinal Tap when he's like, I saw him in the East Village at a club, whatever. He's like, don't look for it. It's not there anymore. All of my favorite clubs that we used to play at are gone. From, Bun Ratties. Do you remember Edible Rex in Billerica? That was right off Route 3.
I know the strip club in Billerica. Is that still there? I
don't even know. but Edible Rex, TT the Bears, the only one still there is the Middle East. Yeah.
So TT's is gone. Huh?
TT's is right, and it's funny because I was watching a documentary on Gary Hart, the drummer, songwriter, singer. One of the songwriters for Husker Du, the great band from like the late 70s and early 80s.
Not the Congressman Gary Hart.
Not the Congressman Gary Hart. Presidential candidate Gary Hart. Trying to think of the name of his mistress.
Chandra Levy.
Look at you.
It wasn't a mistress. It was one of her assistants. There was a alleged affair. Her body was found. They actually determined it wasn't him. But that whole scandal got swept up by 9/11.
Oh,
that's why it didn't
fester more.
Exactly right. So 9/11 happened, and he got off. Whatever. The focus was taken off him, but he was a legit candidate in '88. Yeah. Like he made an appearance on Cheers.
Yes, and I remember it's like there's a picture on the boat with her sitting on his lap. And
that's actually a good documentary. There's the Gary Hart documentary that came out a while ago, and then the Hugh Jackman movie about Gary Hart came out like last year. I forget. I think the Contender or something like that. I forget what it was called. But I'd rather talk about that Gary Hart than the other Gary Hart from Husker Du.
Well, but that Gary Hart from Husker Du, watched the documentary. It's like there was lots of footage from him playing at TT the Bears, and I was like, oh man, it just made me nostalgic. Anyway, Dan and I and the professor will be playing with Dave Marabella and the Rationales next Friday, and it's great because we had our weekly rehearsal. Everybody showed up on time. Everybody, which was great. And Dave Marabella had earlier that day said, "Hey, can I sit in on a couple songs with you guys?" Which was great because before Sean came back to the fold, Dave on a regular basis, before the Rationales.
Sean Keneally, the bass player from Beyond It, of course.
The professor. But Dave would sit on with us for years every time we would come back here and play. So it's great. I did specify, and this is always a concern that Dave and I have had letting Dave play with us. He's good. and he knows the songs better than we do. And I'm not kidding. There's been so many times when, getting ready to play a song, Dad's like, "Oh, does it go here?" And Marabella's like, "No, it's more this." But it is. We're looking forward to it. So we send him a set list and come up the second half. Start the whole show with us. End the show. Whatever you want to do, Dave. I mean, and again, it's like we talk about a lot. I hate leaving the house. I like to go see the Rationale, so it's really great when we get to play together for a couple reasons. One, his brother, who's a great drummer, has a really nice drum set that he brings and sets up, and I just buy him some beer, and I get to use it, and I, don't have to do anything except walk in with the drumsticks. And I'll offer to help set it up and take it down, but some people are very precise in what they do and how they like things set up, and I'm not, so it's
kind of like when I offer to pay for dinner. I reach for my wallet, but I reach for the pocket that the wallet's not even in.
Right. But you put on a good show.
Exactly. Right. I make that hollow offer, and hopefully you don't call me on it.
So that is next Friday, and that is probably the one thing that is keeping me from going to the Rickety Stool and Rope store. So a couple things before we get into the big topic for you this week. I've had it recently suggested to check out the podcast. Have you heard the Canadian comedian Dave Hill? Have you?
Yes.
And what is it? History's Fluffer?
I don't know about his show, but I know of him.
He has a show called History's Fluffer. And essentially it's just him telling stories with two co-hosts or kind of asking questions about it, in which he was part of the Apollo moon landing. He was a real driving force behind Apple being created. And it's pretty awesome.
Okay.
It sounds ridiculous.
A bit high concept.
But it's great.
Okay.
But I mean, they're kind of poking holes in his story, but at the same time,
it's kind of like a Forrest Gump approach where he has brushes with history, or no, he's legitimately,
and how Neil Armstrong conned him into, oh wait, we need we need your backpack before we go on the moon. Oh, right. So I went to get my backpack, and that's when he jumped out and was the first man on the moon. And then Buzz Aldrin, and the story goes on. It's like, well, then they ran out of time, and they promised, well, we're going to be coming back all the time, and you're great at space. So you're going to be coming here all the time and stuff like that. And they're 40-minute stories about, and the same thing about how he created Apple. And you go how Steve Wozniak was, he was a smart guy. I'm not saying he wasn't. I'm just saying a lot of the ideas he came up with came from our conversations when we were playing beer pong one day. And I'm like, hey, I've been in Apple. And I'm like, wouldn't this be great for a logo for something one day? It's like, but you're only 38. How would you?
Don't do the math. Don't do the math.
But it is. So of course.
And Dave Hill apparently killer guitarist.
Oh, because they have lots of guitar interests. Probably just him.
Yeah.
Doing it. Because there's nothing more we like to do than promote other podcasts. And then of course,
Please.
Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend, which you told me about the other day. At a moment of darkness, you gave me a little shining light, knowing that I won't be able to listen to terrestrial radio or TV for the next 3 months. So you're like, hey, Conan has this new podcast.
It's very well done. It starts off like the earlier episodes. He has this air about him where he doesn't have a sense of humor, and he takes things very literally, and he doesn't laugh a lot in his first few episodes. But then they must have spoken to him like, hey, the audience likes it when you laugh at the jokes, and so then he becomes more comfortable.
Come on, these are the jokes, kids. These are the jokes.
Exactly. So he does amazing interviews with like Stephen Colbert. The Howard Stern interview was really good. Yes, Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend is a must-listen. The latest episode, Martin Short.
We are going to do a Martin Short sideshow because as he's going down some of the stuff that he's done, I mean, we've talked about it recently. His tour that he's done the last couple of years with Steve Martin, A Night You'll Forget for the Rest of Your Life. You go down all the movies he's done. Like you haven't watched Three Fugitives yet, which is it's management's one of her favorite movies. I think the movie is okay. I don't think it's as great as she does. I will say the first 10 minutes of the movie Three Fugitives from the mid-'80s with him and Nick Nolte, I'm hard-pressed to think of a funnier 5 to 10 minutes of Martin Short on film. And that is saying a lot. And then he was talking about SCTV and how Conan's like, yeah, that was always my inspiration. But the best part about the thing with Conan is they were making some joke back and forth, and Conan's like, jokingly saying to himself, you'll never work in this city again. Well, they've tried 17 times. And each time I come back, in a smaller format. and then everyone's laughing. He goes, and that's funny because it's true. Because I remember when he lost the Tonight Show.
Oh yeah, did he?
And he went to Twitter, and I think that was his first tweet. I had a network show. Now I have Twitter. And at the time it was 140 characters, and
yes, there were less Nazis on there.
A lot
less.
Simpler time. Simple, but yeah. So the Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend and Dave Hill's History's Fluffer. Okay. You gotta check out.
I will definitely put it on my maybe list.
You're not leaving the house this weekend, but if you were, there's a lot of new movies out. Big movie week.
Big movie.
Are you? Were you a Men in Black guy?
Nah. I like the first movie. I saw a bit of the second one. I kind of fell off. Not a big Men in Black guy though.
Yeah, that's one of those ones you'd think I'd be all over, but I never really was a huge. I didn't see him in the theater. I didn't see him till years later. Racist.
I'm sorry. Excuse me. Sorry. What was that?
But now it's interesting because Chris Helmsworth, and I do not know the woman's name because, of course, like you already said,
racist. Yeah. Sorry. Oh my God, it's really
I know her and love her
here.
as Valkyrie from Endgame, but she first appeared in Thor. Ragnarok, in which she was great. So they're starring in that. I think I'll wait for that to come out. I'm not sure if Shaft is something I'm going to make an effort to see in the
Now,
theater.
which Shaft are you talking about? Because there's 3 Shafts now.
Oh, are there really?
So there's the original Shaft.
Okay.
Then the Samuel L. Jackson Shaft from the early 2000s called Shaft. And now here's this one where it's about, I think, John Shaft's like grandson, or the original Shaft's grandson, named Shaft.
And who stars in it?
Samuel L. Jackson is in the. Yeah, I don't know, but I think it's was it Michael B. Jordan or Chadwick Boseman or
Because the only trailer I saw had
Samuel L. Jackson.
Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah, but so maybe it's a lesser known actor playing the young Shaft. But yeah, so this is the 3rd Shaft in the Shaft trilogy, but they're all named Shaft.
Yeah, not confusing at all.
Nope.
And let's see, Dark Phoenix has come out, and I'm not
Rave reviews, I heard.
Yeah, seriously, I think it's, and you can't go by like the Rotten Tomatoes, but it is. It's like
You can go by Rotten Tomatoes.
you can go by Rotten Tomatoes, but sometimes like there's been some things that like critics hate. Like you look at something like Step Brothers gets like a 4 from Rotten Tomatoes critics, but yet it's the fan. There's the 2 polls. There's the critic polls, and then there's the fan
audience score that they
audience
put.
score. And yeah,
But usually the audience scores are like 98%, and it's
this
it's
is not
right. It's like Problem Child 4. Really?
But they
So there's big movies this weekend: Shaft, Men in Black, Dark Phoenix, and anything else.
Well, Endgame is just a few million, like it's only like 50 million away from passing Avatar, so I might give him a few more dollars. Detective Pikachu became the biggest video game adaptation movie.
Oh,
and
beat out Resident Evil.
None of the Resident Evils have ever done huge,
Right.
But the whole canon, I'm quite sure.
They have like 7 movies or something.
But with this, I mean, Ryan Reynolds, there are not a lot of bigger guys,
And they've done it well. Like, it's not like, that's not Pokemon. It's like, oh no, that's Pokemon in kind of what.
Did you see it?
No, I saw the trailers. I'll probably
yeah.
see it. I mean, when it comes out on digital and then like 4 months later, like Canada. I think I'm going to move. I'm going to be like the Canada of watching that movie.
What was the #1 movie in Canada when it was #1 in the US?
Who knows? But 6 weeks later, it was Detective Pikachu. So that's happening in movies. I don't know. Do you want to talk about the next
game shows?
That's
the big thing. This was a horrible week for me. Big week in Joe's world.
Big week only because ABC apparently really likes game shows a lot, especially during the summer. So since 3 years ago or 2 years ago when they brought back Match Game and $100,000 Pyramid, which we talked about on our game show sideshow with our friend Rodney.
Sideshows, plural.
Yes, right. It couldn't be contained into just one sideshow. The modus operandi is that every summer ABC would fill the void of where they would normally have reruns and competition shows, whatever, with game shows. The game shows that you find on Buzzer, which is all the Fremantle-owned game shows, which nobody knows what the fuck I'm talking about, like those old game shows like Family Feud, Match Game, Press Your Luck, Card Sharks. All those old game shows are now new game shows because Card Sharks premiered this week with host Joel McHale. Very good, I think.
Huge Joe McHale fan.
Yes, and I think you'll like it. He doesn't get in the way of the game. He's snarky, but he moves the game along. If you're not familiar with the format of Card Sharks, 2 contestants, they have this row of 10 cards each that they have to guess whether each is going to be higher or lower than the last. And the way they get control is that they answer questions that are like usually like percentages, like what percentage of women think that Jacques a pervert, and you guess 100, and they'd be like no contest, and you'd get control of the board. Whoever gets to the end first goes to the bonus round. You take the $10,000 you win in the front game, and you use that as betting money, and it's 7 cards where you basically doing the same thing, higher or lower, but each card you're betting using oversized poker chips or oversized betting chips that are in denominations of 1,000 or 5,000, depending on how much you have. And that's kind of clunky. Like instead of just saying a number, I'm going to bet 9,000 the next one's going to be higher, you have to physically take the $5,000 chip and 4 $1,000 chips and put them on the higher part of the table in front of you. So that's a bit goofy, and it adds an element of visuality that's nice, but at the same time, it slows the game down. The personalities are great. And it's fun. Joel McHale's fun. Now, the crown jewel of the new lineup is none other than the revival of Press Your Luck with Elizabeth Banks. That is fan-fucking-tastic. Very flashy set. It's essentially the exact same format and style of the old Press Your Luck, but with flashier graphics, flashier set. They still have like the three people who sit in front of their buzzers, and then when they finish their questions, they turn everything around. Like they turn the big seats around and they face the big board. So it's just like the old show. The music's very similar to the old show, except a little revamped. And the Whammy animations are as like, Microsoft Paint as the original ones. So
good.
they're not. It's not like
it's campy.
It's right, exactly. So it looks like it's done in the '80s style, which some people online didn't like, but I loved. I was like, oh, good, they got the tone of it right, because you don't want like these super flashy, slick Whammy graphics on a fucking '80s revival game show. It's just like, let's call it what it is. It's an '80s nostalgia show.
Now, I see the VCR plugged in here. Were you recording Press Your Luck to study the board so that when you get on, you're going to know the 7 different patterns that they have?
Right, because computers nowadays can only handle 7 patterns.
Right.
No, they actually use '80s computers on this. Yeah, there's an original Macintosh that runs the entire board. So no, it's the same setup, but it's all like LED graphics, and it's great. It's an hour-long show. Both shows are an hour-long.
So it's a 2-hour block.
Yeah, so Card Shark
happiness.
Right. So Card Sharks is 2 half-hour games, which is fine because you don't really need an hour long of Card Sharks. Card Sharks is really simple. Press Your Luck is simple, but there's moving parts and varying degrees of stress involved and strategies. So the first half of the game, or the first part of the game, is like the '80s game show. You have the 3 contestants. They play 2 rounds of spinning, and whoever wins at the end of the game goes on to a bonus round, like a brand new bonus round where it's almost like a little Deal or No Deal. So the winner from the first game plays against the house. They play the board on their own. Their first round, they play like 7 rounds, where each round the big money amount goes from like 10,000 to 15 to 25 to 100,000, whatever. The goal is that if they can run the gamut without whammying out by getting 4 whammies, and if they can build up their bank to $500,000, then they'll stop the game and give them $1 million, which is fantastic. But there's a lot of incentives to not go all the way. First, they bring on a family member or a friend. They give you a little time to give your spiel about like what you would do with the money. And say, we'd go on a trip to Paris, or my wife and I just had a baby, and, we'd really like to save it. Yeah, right. You... Depends on what state. Right. Sorry, Tennessee. Never mind. Nobody gets that reference. Nobody gets sorry, Tennessee. The first round, you start off with 6 spins, and they throw in like a prize that's tailor-made to you. So like if you say you want to, like this legitimately happened on the game show. Like a guy was a Michael Bolton fan. He celebrates the man's entire catalog.
What's your favorite song?
Right. I'd say all of them. So one of the prizes was you get to go on an East Coast tour with Michael Bolton. Like you tour in a tour bus and you follow him to like 10 different cities or 6 different cities, and that's one of the prizes. And so it's like, okay, so the prizes aren't just like, you win a free oven mitt, You actually get prizes where, now if I go to the next round and whammy it, I'm going to lose that fucking awesome prize I just won. Now, do I really want to do that? And so it really tugs on people's emotions, which is a great little added incentive. So it's nobody in the past 2 episodes, there hasn't been anybody that have gone to like even close to $500,000. But it's interesting. I think it's fun. I think it's great. Elizabeth Banks is very good as a host. She's funny, but she doesn't take over the game. She's not as snarky as Joel McHale.
Very few are.
But of course, both of them are executive producers of each of their own shows. So they're not just phoning it in, like they have vested interest. So, but yeah, so we have Card Shark, Match Game, Press Your Luck. I'm waiting for Scrabble. Somebody bring like Rodney mentioned that. on the podcast that we did with him that Scrabble needs to come back, which won't come back because there's a whole rights issue.
Not a Fremantle show.
Right, and Chuck Woolery, I think they went full Chuck Woolery, and you never go full Chuck Woolery.
FBI, was he FBI or CIA?
No. You're thinking of Chuck Barris.
Right.
Chuck Woolery is the racist guy on Twitter now. Remember the Love Connection guy?
Love Connection, yeah. Back in 2 and 2, after I go kill some darkies.
He doesn't kill darkies.
Has him killed. Anyways, it's funny, the Joe McHale thing. I always think about this when I think of Joe McHale because, I always think about these things. There was an episode of Community, his show Community, where his shirt gets ripped off, and it was truly a Ned Flanders moment where unexpectedly he is fucking ripped. Like he could be in the Avengers kind of ripped, but he always wears really nice suits and you can never he just doesn't present as somebody who
he doesn't wear the Simon Cowell titty shirts.
Right. But seriously, every time I think about that, I think about that Ned Flanders moment where you're like, damn, man. Or Willie, Willie.
Oh, yeah.
Willie.
Groundskeeper Willie.
Groundskeeper Willie, another guy where he's ripped off his shirt and all of a sudden he's just jacked, ripped like Jesus.
You see, you talking about this makes me think of the part of The Simpsons where Homer can't get Ned's ass out of his mind. Feels like you're wearing nothing at all. Nothing at all. Nothing at all.
Now, let's get into the Jon Stewart. So, Jon Stewart, retires... God, it's a while ago now. 5 years?
Well, did he retire after Letterman? Letterman retired in 2015. Did he retire? Yeah, he retired before the election. So, yeah, right around the same time.
Right.
Yeah.
Right when we needed him the most.
Yes. Well, remember his final speech was basically how to sniff out bullshit and don't let bullshit happen. When you see bullshit, say something. And how did that work out for us?
It's from day one. I mean, he really retired. I mean, he a lot of people say, oh, I want to spend more time with the family. And, Letterman's sort of back, but Letterman pretty much dropped off the grid, as did Jon Stewart for a little while. Jon Stewart has resurfaced a few times over the last couple years with all the strife and things we would like to see his take on and like him to be involved in and put a funny spin on. The one project that he pops up on a major level a few times is fighting for the first responders of 9/11. And again, this week he was back, talking to Congress, where he was a year or so ago when he was just trying, basically, do you remember, was it a bill that had died that he was trying to keep going?
Well, it's the Victims' Compensation Fund, which since 9/11, they established this fund that was supposed to treat first responders for medical conditions that they saw cropping up in, coincidentally, these first responders. Like, oh, wow, everybody that went to 9/11 to Ground Zero, 5 years later, they're getting cancer. So maybe we should pay for that because, they attacked the United States and it's part of an act of war. And, maybe we do them a solid as the United States government. But the bill would always be attached. It'd be used as a political football, as Jon Stewart said in his latest speech, that it would be attached to other bills that, senators and congresspeople would
We have to help these people, and we need a new bridge in my town.
Right. So, but it would always be up for renewal, like a fucking lease. We'll give them 5 years of compensation or 10 years, and then you'll have to like somebody fighting for, like Yoko Ono appearing every 5 years or 10 years at the parole hearing for Mark David Chapman, and it's just we can't just put him away for life. Like, we have to have her come back,
right,
and have to state the case,
testify.
Yeah, right.
And what is your side of the story? Oh, your husband's still dead? Okay,
right. So that's the same thing. And Jon Stewart got heavily involved with being the spokesperson for first responders who are now having to decide whether or not they can afford to get their 69th chemo treatment or keep their house.
I remember the last time he made the rounds with this, he showed up at senators' offices and sometimes sat there all day. I mean, all day. And he knew the senators were in the office and wouldn't see him. And he would sit in the hallway. And that's the thing. It's like, are you really going to call the Capitol Police and have Jon Stewart handcuffed and dragged out of there and handcuff these first responders. And he had, the little laptop ready to go where these senators had run on things like fighting for it. Some people who made it their platform, like these are the people who ran towards the towers while everybody was running away from the towers. These are the people we have to protect. These are the heroes. Well, you just voted against it last week, but yet 6 months ago, you had these two guys up on stage with you, and we just want to talk about what's happened in those 6 months because they still have their cancer. They still ran towards the building those days. So could you help us understand? And his sarcastic, but really biting. But he had the footage there of Senator A or Senator B or Senator C talking. So this week, lo and behold, it's up for debate again.
Yeah, there was a House, sub-judiciary committee or a sub-panel or something like that. And yes, time's running out on the VCF, and he did a very impassioned 9-minute speech, very Jimmy Stewart-ish. He took the John out of his name and put Jimmy in there for 9 minutes, and had a very emotional speech. Obviously, everybody knows what I'm talking about, because literally everybody in America probably watched this fucking thing.
No, because...
Yes.
No, here it is. Wednesday, Joe went to my parents' house to watch a program together. When that program wound up very disappointing. But before that program went on, when we walked in my house, do you want us to tell the folks what my 80-year-old white dad, was sitting downstairs watching on the big screen TV?
I don't know. I mean, it was pretty raunchy. I mean, Fox News.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you think Fox News was covering the Jon Stewart thing and showing the whole 9 minutes and talking about what a hero he is fighting for the heroes? Or do you think they were, look at this whiny Jew snowflake? Maybe they didn't say Jew.
See, this is the thing about the VCF is that who is against it? Even if you are Fox News, how do you not want to hold your Republican congressman accountable? I guess maybe because no Republican congressman showed up at the sub panel.
You think so? Yeah, that's the whole thing. I mean, how can you vote against anything this simple, but yet it gets voted against? It's the same, Joe.
Well, I mean,
I won't even ask the hypothetical, rhetorical question, but every time there's a natural disaster, be it in Florida, be it in Puerto Rico, be it in Texas.
Yeah, but Puerto Rico's not America, so whatever.
Right. So there you go. Let's just throw paper towels at them. Be it Hurricane Sandy in New York. When you hear about senators holding up the bill and not agreeing to pay this emergency fund, is it ever a Democrat, from California saying, fuck those people in Texas, I'm not going to vote for them? No, it's always the same scumbags who... the Freedom Caucus, who truly believe government should be on a postage stamp. And you know what? If you didn't tax people, if people weren't burdened by paying for this administration and that administration and this, then they would take that money and give it to charities that would support the guys. Those are the arguments they actually make. But they don't even show up because they know somebody like Jon Stewart, who's done his homework, is going to sit there and say, Senator Chucklefuck from, Utah, you said this when you campaigned 4 years ago. You voted against this twice. Can you look at these people's children who are dying, whose father's dying because he ran to the building on 9/11, and explain to them why, like you said, they have to make the choice: continue chemo or lose their house? Can you explain this to? They don't show up.
Right. And then the other point that Jon Stewart made during his speech was that how on an overall scale, how the Congress would diminish the importance of the federal government having to fund the VCF. Oh, well, at first they were told that they weren't sick, they were crazy. And then when the science came out that they were sick, okay, but it's not from the pile. And when the overwhelming scientific evidence said that, yes, the cancer that they're getting is from the pile, they were told, well, it's a New York issue. I don't remember.
Right, because the Taliban attacked New York, not the United States of America.
But that's what Jon Stewart said. He's like, Al Qaeda didn't say death to Tribeca. And I mean, that laughter that you have right now is 3 million times more than the laughter that he got in
It's not funny.
Because it's not funny. It's very poignant. And he was crying. He was holding back tears.
How fucking ridiculous is this conversation?
Very ridiculous.
That we're even having this.
I don't know. I don't get it.
I mean, honestly, I can't imagine anywhere else. And again, I mean, if it's not people, and truly, this is not hyperbole. Yes, his opinion is completely slanted. He manipulates the facts to make his story. But when somebody like Michael Moore has to put these guys on a plane and take them to Cuba to get treatments that they can't get in the United States, and you don't say, well, what the fuck is wrong with us that these guys, the heroes are the heroes. That term gets bandied around way too fucking much. It really gets bandied around way too fucking much.
Right.
The whole support our
except
troops,
with the mighty heroes.
Right.
You got a rope man.
Diaper Man, and Cuckoo, and Cuckoo. Dude, now they're opening credits for that. You suck.
I know,
but
strong man.
But seriously, you don't see the Dennis Millers going out there, the conservative like comedians or personalities like a Michael Moore, like a Jon Stewart and stuff. And again, this isn't new for Jon Stewart. This isn't he's jumping on the bandwagon. Since day one, he's taken whatever platform he's had available to him and has fought like tooth and nail. And thank fucking God for people like seriously, like a Sarah Silverman, like a Jon Stewart, who are really well spoken, who are really smart, who are on the front lines.
All right, let me do a little dictating of the rundown from now. Jump right to your favorite press secretary, my favorite press secretary, Sarah Huckleberry Sanders, not gonna be working no more.
It's interesting because the rumors are she's getting ready for a gubernatorial run in Arkansas.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck her. Just the fucking.
I don't want her though.
No,
she's gross.
I wouldn't even hate fuck her.
No.
Yeah, you know what I mean. It's like, but seriously, it's amazing that she's lasted this long in the most volatile administration where people have. It's been a revolving door since day one, and she's always been there. Like she was behind Sean Spicer the first umpteen months, but she was part of that. But she's been with him since the campaign, and she the best part about her leaving and running in Arkansas is we won't have to see her face or hear her voice as much going forward.
Mm-hmm, maybe,
but
then the other thing is they're not going to backfill her position. It's just going to be yet another cabinet position or another position, another post in the administration that is not going to be actively filled. Like there's a lot of acting this
right.
and a lot of acting that.
But like I had said earlier, that's what people like the Freedom Caucus and other people want. They want to not downsize government. They truly want to have it be a
dismantled.
6-person. I mean,
like an oligarchy of
right?
sorts.
Seriously, and well,
or a Jedi Council, but without the Jedi.
And then, and on the other hand, so she's on her way out. Cunty Ann Conway, she is staying, even though it turns out, basically, long story short, everybody's heard this, the Hatch Act, you can and can't do certain things when you're part of an administration, which it's so ridiculous. That's the words were coming out of my mouth, the things that you're not supposed to do. But she's broken these laws that she has been, several times. And where she went on, was it Good Morning America, where she was hawking products by Ivanka Trump's clothing line. Like she was Ivanka Trump was under some fire from that. She goes on Good Morning America, start talking it up and how it was like Macy's or somebody dropped Ivanka's line, and she went on. It wasn't even Fox News. It was one of the major networks and saying these are great clothes. This is ridiculous. Everybody should go out and buy. You cannot use the office.
For personal gain,
for personal gain and stuff like that,
or any sort of advertisement of something.
And it's funny, so of course everybody, the office. Sorry, it was the office of special counsel. No, not Miller's office, but the same office department that falls under this jurisdiction has come out and said she's been warned. She's been warned. She's been warned. She has to go. She has to be sanctioned. She has to go. These are breaking the laws. And of course, the administration said, fuck you. She's going to stay. But this is the same administration. I mean, just this week alone, Bloatis and 2012 bought a house for $7 million in Beverly Hills that last year was assessed at $8 million. And, in 7 years, a Beverly Hills property going from $7 million to $8 million isn't head spinning. The fact that it's sold to a no bid, one person put in an offer for $13.5 million, who is running for the president of Indonesia, is starting to raise flags because, lo and behold, Donnie Two Scoops hasn't divested from his private businesses. This is a private sale from the Trump Corporation to the possible head of another state trying to get favor with him. And the property was sold for over $5 million over what it was estimated top value, because Beverly Hills wants to tax you at the top value of it. But that's the kind of stuff that happens each and every fucking day. And I don't think I realized that Mitch McConnell's wife has been up to a lot of crazy stuff. Her father's Chinese. And as Interior, well, I'm trying to think of what, it's not Treasury.
Secretary of Interior?
No, she is Commerce Secretary, I believe.
Oh.
And basically she's been making statements the last couple of years to inflate certain stocks that she was supposed to divest out of, that she's been sanctioned for not divesting out of, that she hasn't, that has literally, it's just come out in the past couple days, the tens of millions of dollars that she's made from that position, giving jobs to her father's construction company.
Those will buy her some pretty fancy lawyers.
There's only lawyers if you get arrested. But what is Mitch
These
McConnell
people
gonna do?
will pay for their crimes eventually.
Yeah.
Eventually, I'm sure.
So I did want to talk about it just a couple of things. We're going to go to war with Iraq within the next couple months.
Iran.
And here's the worst fucking thing.
Iran's so far away.
Nobody. Now that's going to the right head. But at least you got out the diaper man. So they've been pushing, the John Boltons have been pushing for a reason to go after Iran for a while. And then lo and behold, 2 oil tankers happen to get
blowed up, or attacked, torpedoed even.
And instantly, as soon as I hear this, and there's no evidence to back it up that it was the Iranians, I think, remember the Maine. Do you remember the Spanish? You were what, 14, 15 when the Spanish-American War came out?
Yes.
Does anybody remember the war cry, Remember the Maine? What had happened is off the coast of Cuba, a U.S. warship, the Maine, was attacked by the Spanish Armada and blown up, and these poor sailors died. And that was the catalyst to go to war, the Spanish-American War. There was no Spanish ships anywhere near this. It was a fire on the ship, an accident that sank the ship. But, there's no news saying it wasn't. There was no footage showing that Spain didn't blow it up. And that was the catalyst we went to war. And so here it is. I'm not going to do the math, but that was in 1898. And here it is, the same exact fucking thing. And now,
well, here we are. I mean, there's also another one that they used as a catalyst for war. Never forget 9/11.
Yeah.
Remember when Iraq flew those planes
right into the building?
Yes.
That had nothing, and Saddam Hussein was one of the you didn't know he was one of the 19 hijackers, didn't you?
He was the 20th hijacker.
He was the 5th Beatle as well. Very few people know that. No, and then the last awful thing this week is, again, Cadet Bonespurs goes on national TV and says, of course I would take, opposition research from a foreign power. Why wouldn't I? And so even across the board, all these Republicans were coming out saying, even Lindsey Graham was saying, well, that's wrong. You shouldn't do that, blah, blah, blah. It's like, he did it with Russia, but he didn't know better. They made all these. But now he's openly saying, yes, I would take it. Russia, if you're listening, part 2, send me what you got. And a lot of people lost their shit. So that was on Tuesday. On Wednesday, a Democratic senator, and it's called a clean bill, came out. It's like a 1-paragraph bill making it crystal clear that there's no more ambiguity. If a foreign power approaches you, whether you're running for dog catcher or president and everything in between, if a foreign power offers you help to win an election, you have to contact the FBI. Republicans voted it down. Like the same Republicans who 24 hours after Blotus went on ABC were saying, that's ridiculous, that's horrible, that's un-American, no country should intervene in our elections, and he shouldn't say that. A clean bill, not one of these, I want to make sure that you report it to the FBI, and I need a new highway in my city, appropriate $20 trillion. No, it was just a clean bill that said, we are now going to make it mandatory that if you get approached by a foreign government that you have to. And the Republicans said, no.
Well, I think there was also a minor provision in that bill that said that an elephant can pitch.
Oh.
And that's
okay.
where,
all right.
you know,
But see, I didn't read
right.
the fine print.
Yeah, so they didn't want that happening.
So,
There's nothing in the rule books that says an elephant can't
but
pitch.
now there is.
Anyway. Okay, so, man, over the week, E3 happened, the Electronics Expo. A lot of fun stuff being announced for video games and entertainment. One of them being this really cool arcade cabinet put out by a company called Arcade 1-Up. Last year, they did like Pac-Man and Street Fighter, little 3/4 sized arcade cabinets that are, in the $400 range, $300 range, depending. They're decently made. They're pretty decently made. I wouldn't, lean on it too hard. I wouldn't get too much Cheeto dust on it. But they're pretty cool. But there's a Star Wars cabinet coming out with Star Wars Arcade, Empire Strikes Back Arcade, and Return of the Jedi Arcade. And it has the yoke control, with the trigger buttons. Yeah, like the old school, not just like a, Pac-Man joystick. That is going for a cool like $500 with the stand, because you can buy them like 4 feet tall, but you're kind of hunched over if you're playing it. But then you can also buy like a cool box to put the arcade cabinet on top of to elevate it to a standard arcade height. So all told, that's $500. The reason why I'm bringing all this up, we need some fucking money to buy that arcade cabinet in the fall when it comes out, right in time for Christmas, and put it in our studio here, our illustrious subterranean studio in an undisclosed location in Arlington. But to do that, we need money from certain sponsors. Not just any sponsors, but defunct sponsors. Like this defunct sponsor of the week.
We're the lifeline of your business day. We let them know that you're okay. We're working hard in every way to make your calls go through. And every time you make a call, we're the ones who do it all. More than sending your voice, we bring the world to you. We're the one for you, New England. New England Telephone.
Part of the Ninex family, and an important part of your business, too.
Yes or no? If we can raise the funds through these defunct sponsors, do we put it to the left or the right of the mini fridge? We're down here.
That is actually in lieu of the mini fridge.
So absolutely nothing happened in sport, so we can just skip over that. And I think we can skip sport until September 8th, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, when the NFL season starts. It actually starts 3 days before Green Bay Packers playing the Chicago Bears to commemorate the start of the 100th NFL season.
Where do they play it this season? On the fucking moon?
I think so.
Yeah, like so. Usually, is it like the Antarctic? Is it
close to the Antarctic?
Papua New Guinea,
Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Okay.
So to commemorate the 100th year, they're like, okay, we're going to have the Bears play the Packers on Thursday night football, start the season, and then the Patriots will start on Sunday. So
the frozen tundra.
Let's not talk sport.
Okay.
Unless we want to talk about the women's soccer team that won 13-0 against Thailand. And dude, it's like, yeah,
What?
You can't do anything about it. It's like,
Timeout. First of all, how ironic that they beat by 13 goals a country named Thailand.
shut up. Well, you've played sports your whole life as well.
Yeah.
I've been on both sides of those where you play teams that shouldn't be in your division that just killed you, and it's been the other way around. And yes, it's more fun to be on the ass-kicking side, but you can't stop playing. It's actually more humiliating if the other team can score, let's say, 15 goals and just took it easy. Anyways, that's it for sport. Moving on to the much more important things, which would bring us to Video games.
Wait, more video games?
Yeah,
Oh,
well,
yeah,
we don't have to do.
No, we didn't really talk a lot of video games.
But we you and I talked the other day. The new Avenger Endgame game is coming out, and it's getting the same reviews that Dark Phoenix, the X-Men movie, is.
Not so good. I think it pales in comparison, I think, to the Marvel Spider-Man game, which is phenomenal. Have you played much of Why aren't you playing Marvel Spider-Man? Why? I mean, you've 105% Resident Evil 2.
Well, you'd be happy to know I have, since coming back from Phoenix, I played Resident Evil just literally a couple times, just had a couple hours to kill, threw it on, and went through the game. But the other day, I started playing, you'll be happy to hear, Resident Evil 5 on the PS4. Like, I did. I for some reason, I'm like, the controls are different. I want to see if I'm still as good. And it took like a couple rounds to really get it going, and then I'm like, yeah, I'm pathetically awesome at this, and nobody 50 should be this good at any game ever.
So So basically, your video games to you are Galaga, Resident Evil, whatever, and Batman, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well-
So no Marvel Spider-Man. That's for nerds and
But
babies.
I watched you play, and it was great. And I watched my little guy play it, and it's great. It literally looks like a great game.
All right.
Yeah.
I guess you don't want to be cool. That's all.
Could I? I mean, is it but so the Avenger game, yeah, I guess the biggest knocks on it are some of the characters, especially the one that I've seen like the stills of is the Black Widow, and it does. Oh, I said who Farquaad, like side by side, like the same jawline and stuff like that looks more like Farquaad from Shrek.
I honestly didn't see much of the Avengers trailer. I saw, speaking about E3, I did see more video game footage, gameplay footage of Doom Eternal, which is the sequel to the awesome Doom game that came out for the PS4 a couple of years ago, which I think your little one has played.
Yeah,
A rated M game where you rip the hearts out of Hellions and then stomp on their heads.
I'd say don't judge me, but you are well within your right. You and everybody else.
I couldn't. Your kid
I think
was
it
like
was
10.
8.
Was he 10?
No, he's almost 12 now, but that was like,
It was about 3 years ago.
yeah. So when he was 8,
Oh my God. Yeah.
right? When you do the math, it's like, is Chuck the worst parent I know? Man, no, yeah, pretty, yeah, circling right in.
Right. So there's a Doom Eternal that's coming out this fall. I forget.
I wasn't a Doom guy, but I was happy to let my then 8-year-old know what the BFG was. He just was excited when he got the BFG, and then when I told him what it meant, he thought I was kidding. And then I showed him an interview with The Rock on Jon Stewart, because Jon Stewart was very excited because Jon Stewart was a big Doom guy when The Rock came on and brought the BFG with him from the movie. And it is about 3 times the size of Jon Stewart. He literally, it was one of those things where The Rock hands it over with like one hand and Jon Stewart takes it with both and like almost drops it. So
there's Doom. Nintendo had a lot of nice things to say during E3. The Switch is getting a new Luigi's Mansion game, which is an offshoot of the Super Mario series, where you play as Luigi. And you can also play multiplayer in the new Luigi's Mansion 3. You're basically a Ghostbuster. Luigi's a Ghostbuster in these games. And in the third game, I guess you can play as Gooigi, which is like a ghost version, like a Slimer from the Ghostbusters version of Luigi. And he can, you can control him to go through like bars and stuff like that. And it's cute. So there's that. There's a new Zelda game that's coming out. It's a remake of a original Game Boy game called Link's Awakening. And people are losing their shit over it because it looks gorgeous. And it's basically the same exact game but with souped up graphics, and it's made for a generation that doesn't have an emulator and doesn't have a Game Boy from 1991, so that's exciting. There's also the Breath of the Wild game that came out for The Legend of Zelda on the Switch. Anyways, there's a new one in production that's coming out in a couple of years. They haven't given a date for that. There's a new Super Mario Maker game where you can make Mario levels from the Super Mario Brothers, and that's fun. There's more Resident Evil games coming out for the Switch. There's Resident Evil 5 and 6 coming out for the Switch. which you don't give a shit about because the Switch are for kids. Sorry, Rabbit, Switch are for kids. And
Yeah, I don't think I've actually played anything on this. Those controllers are just too.
they're bad. They're pretty bad.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not the worst thing in the world, but they can get pretty shaky. But there's so Nintendo shown at the E3. So I'm sure there's a lot of fun stuff to look forward to. So you've only played a little bit of Resident Evil 5 this week?
Literally since coming back from Phoenix, sadly, haven't had a shitload of time to play games. Well, first of all, we moved the boys' game systems downstairs, and I'm just too lazy to go down another flight of steps.
Good.
To do it. So that's why I've been, catching up more on documentaries and stuff like that.
Which we'll get to, I guess, in a minute. So, I mean,
and jamming more, getting ready for the big show.
Yes. Sally O'Brien's June 21st in Somerville.
Looking forward to it, because it's not so much I'm worried about, letting Dan down or the professor down, but Dave Marabella's sitting in with us, so I got to get my shit together.
Don't embarrass me in front of Dave.
But yeah, but sticking on games for a second, is there? I've heard a rumor. It's only a rumor. Is a PS5 in the works?
Yes.
What is the timeline for that?
I don't know. I think maybe within about 2 years ish.
Oh, but it's not a this Christmas type thing.
No. They wouldn't. There was no actual PS. I don't think there was much PS5 talk during E3. Because it's still kind of in the mid-development stages.
Way away.
Yeah, it's not super long away, but it's like the next couple of years.
So it's mid-June now. At what point do you start thinking, okay, this is coming out, but Christmas? I mean, is it way too far? I mean, when are your Dream Squashers' birthdays?
Oh, around Christmas, like a month before and a month after.
Okay, so something comes out now. Are you thinking, because I did not know, and I still don't know what platform it is, but I saw Brie Larson on Fallon doing this lightsaber game, this virtual reality lightsaber game, and I don't know if you've seen that.
It could be right. I don't know. It could be Sony VR.
Fucking awesome. And I was looking at that thinking, oh man, wife doesn't want to get VR, which is kind of funny because I've seen that meme. Parents like in the 50s telling kids not to sit too close to the television because they're going to go blind. Cut to the panel of the VR right in your face. And I'm thinking, oh God, I actually was like, fuck, I would love that.
We kind of teased about that last Christmas.
What?
I was like, because they have a Batman VR game. They're coming out with a Star Wars VR game. VR is the next level of video gaming. At least, I don't know how integrated. I don't know if it's going to be Ready Player One technology where like everybody's doing VR and that's the way to play video games. But that's like the next logical step in gaming right now. The motion controls in like the early 2000s with the Wii and the Kinect and everything, that was all gimmicky, but it wasn't very super intuitive. But it kind of bridged the gap between casual gamers and hardcore gamers. It brought more people into gaming.
My mom went out and bought it.
Yeah. So VR, you do have older people, like you do have people in their late 50s and 60s playing VR games that aren't like, Resident Evil VR, but they're a little bit more casual VR.
So that's the thing. It's like, at what point do you start saying, well, I'm going to drop $500, $750 on gaming stuff, and from mid-November on, between the two of them and myself, and then of course, the huge money I drop on you with video games when I'm at Savers and I see an old cartridge for $3.
That's worth 10.
It's what right. I don't want to lose money on the deal.
When do I start thinking about Christmas? I don't know. The same thing, dude. I go through life with no plan, zero plan. You think I have savings for anything? You think my kids are going to college? I don't think so. Do you think they're getting a Christmas present? Probably. I'll think about that after Thanksgiving.
Okay. That's just the kind of stuff because I start thinking about that. It's like every time, just today they wanted to go into GameStop. It's like, oh, it's $60 walking through the door. It's like a cover charge. You know what I mean? It's like going to a nightclub. It's like, yeah, I have to pay to get in this place.
I don't know. Hopefully, you just avoid GameStop. How about that? How about not going there?
But like the big purchases, that's why it's like, all right, if a PS5 is on the horizon.
Yeah, I think we're solid. If you have a PS, the thing is about the VR, you can do it on a PS4 original. It's preferred and it runs smoother and it's probably less nauseating if you run it on a PS4 Pro because the frame rate's higher and it's just better. It's smoother.
I think we have, but I'm not sure.
The PS4 Pro came out about a year or two ago. And so, I mean, I have the PS4 original. I don't have the Pro. The Pro is like 4K ready, that kind of thing. Do you have a 4K TV? Probably.
Yes.
Okay. Right. So, if you have a PS4 Pro, you're one step closer to a pure PSVR experience. But then again, yeah, you're buying the games. You're buying the control. I mean, you can use the joysticks or the controllers that come with it, but there are also motion controls
that are better, that are more expensive, that you have to really enjoy.
That's how they get you. Ugh. I don't know. But yeah, it's like, right.
Let's go back to that first hit of cocaine.
Speaking of hits of cocaine, we don't want to let these addicts who are listening to us be deprived of this week's random video game review. Do we?
No, we do not.
No. So sashay your sweet little thing over there to the video game wall and hit me. No whammies, no whammies. Big bucks. No ET. Stop. And Jacques, this time, did not pull a Nintendo Entertainment System game off the wall. Oh, no. He pulled one of my Sega Genesis games off the wall because Jacques knows, finally, he's come around to the notion that Sega does what Nintendo don't. You pulled a game off the wall that it's kind of hard to see, but I think it's an S game, like a super game. Is it super? It's not Super Street Fighter, is it?
It's not.
Super Monaco GP? I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's what it is.
Oh, what do you know? Super Monaco GP. This is the Sega Classic version. Basically, it's a re-release of an early 1989 Sega Genesis game. It's a racing game, and I think it's a port of an arcade game because Sega was way into the arcade games. I mean, I'm opening up the case because if you remember the old Sega Genesis games, they came in the plastic cases, the non-biodegradable plastic cases that were great because they were clamshell and they would protect the game and hold the manuals, and they were the box themselves. So very often, if you're looking for Sega Genesis games out there, you will most likely find them in the case because kids didn't throw them away. So this is a racing game that is your standard kind of like pole position-y type of game. You're in the driver's seat of an Indy car. What do you call it? Is it not an Indy car? I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. I don't know anything about sports, driving, cars.
Have you played this?
Have I driven a Ford lately? No. Have I played Super Monaco GP? I think if you played any one of these types of games, you played them all. I'm sure these are like Formula One cars. That's what I was looking for. These are like these Formula One cars. I'm just looking at the inserts because this thing has a shitload of inserts. It's not just like the cheesy manual. I mean, the manual.
Have them all too.
Yeah, like the manual. This thing comes with a catalog of Sega Game Gear games. Get a grip! And Sonic is holding a Sega Game Gear, and it folds out. Let me look at this real quick. This thing folds out to like a big poster size thing that it previews all the games that you can get for the Sega Game Gear, which was if you don't know what the Sega Game Gear was, it's not a picture worthy. Just put your fucking camera down.
I want to take a picture of what fold. Is it a centerfold? Is Sonic naked? Oh, hey,
wow.
Look at that.
Look at this handsome young fella. It's on one side, it's a Sega Game Gear ad, and on the other side is a full color poster for Batman Returns, the Sega Game Gear game with Michael Keaton as Batman. So maybe this will be your present. This is your Father's Day / birthday present.
Oh my God, we almost forgot that it's Father's Day this weekend.
Or was.
It was, yes. How was your Father's Day, Joe?
I don't know. But this is, the Sega Game Gear was Sega's answer to the Game Boy. It was full color, but the games were good, okay-ish, but the battery life wasn't as long-lasting as the Game Gear. The games weren't as addictive as the Game Boy and are as accessible as the Game Boy games were. But, yeah. So what else comes in? Let's go through the...
Yeah, it's more Batman stuff in there.
But there's there's another
manual for that game.
There's another leaflet in here for Batman Returns. Either that or they were just hawking the shit out of fucking Batman Returns. Oh, this is for the Sega Genesis and the Sega CD. Oh yeah, so this is just another ad. Let me see. Let me see how this thing folds.
Another big fold out.
Yeah, here we go. Another fold out. What's on this? Oh, look at that. I'm gonna hang these up. It's a Sonic the Hedgehog 2 poster.
The last one I said, is it a centerfold of Sonic? Because that's what I associate Sega with. And it was Batman. This time it is.
It's a Sonic 2 Game Gear poster.
See, now I'm a little disappointed that it's Sonic 2, but yet does not say Electric Boogaloo. Because I think everything that has a 2 next to it, legally.
Yes. As a hack comedian, you have to say that. And then there's other bullshit in here. Joe Montana 1 football. An ad for that. Joe Montana football is a great game. Joe Montana's play action football. I think is that what it's called? Maybe it's just Joe Montana football. They had speech. It had play by play.
Oh,
so
was it one of the first ones?
One of the first ones with play by play.
Okay.
It was pretty fucking awesome. I mean, growing up, with Tecmo Bowl, which was good, but then you're playing as Joe Montana and you're hearing Joe Montana. Back to pass, throws it, complete, first down, that kind of thing. That was pretty awesome to hear coming out of your Sega Genesis. So that was a little boring trip down memory lane.
No, that was great. I'm so glad of all things that pulled off the shelf. This was a cornucopia of video goodness.
Yeah, of nostalgia. And it's, so Sega Super Mario GP 1 player. I'm going to say that this goes for $2, and that's my final offer.
You watching anything?
Honestly, more All in the Family, and
good for you.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm watching. I didn't realize that most of the episodes that are the biggest episodes that I remember are toward the end of the run. In the 8th season was the Edith gets attacked episode.
Yeah, which did we do a whole sideshow about it or just
no? I think we just mentioned it.
And remember that actor never got work again.
No, that's not true.
Which one am I thinking? Oh, am I thinking the guy from Dudley and the bike shop? One of those guys.
Yes, Gordon Jump.
Yeah, just could not get over.
Well, he was the Maytag repairman in commercials, but for the most part, yeah. After that episode where he played the child molester on Different Strokes, it was never the same for him again.
But the guy who attacked Edith, he knew. Oh fuck! When the audience.
Well, there was an E! True Hollywood Story where the actor, his name is actually David Dukes. Nice name, by the way. He was the guy who played the attacker, and he stated that when he locked the door to the house after he was let in, he was posing as a police officer or a detective who was going around investigating these molestations by this weirdo. And as he's describing what the guy looks like to Edith, he's describing himself. And then he locks the door, and the audience goes, ooh. And you hear weird chuckling in the background, and it's just it's odd,
uncomfortable laughter.
Yeah, it's uncomfortable or kind of giddy laughter, or it's a comedy, this is going to be weird, whatever. So then, but then when he throws her down on the sofa and gets on top of her, then the audience gets really quiet, and then there are moments when he plays it real normal, he's just this is going to happen, lady. Where he's just an average guy. She goes, but I'm married, and he goes, so am I. And it's just oh, wait a minute, yeah, this is a real.
I don't want to talk about this,
right? But I want to get to the crescendo, which everybody knows who's seen the episode. She smells something burning in the kitchen, and she goes over, with him to the kitchen because she says my cake is burning, and she pulls the burning cake out of the oven and it's smoking and everything. And he's like, get rid of it. And like, with a moment's hesitation, she just tosses the cake in the guy's face and then like knees him in the groin and pushes him out the back door, the kitchen door. The sound that you hear from the audience is a sound that was probably never heard in that studio ever in the history of that show. A testament to, like, this is the 8th season, by the way. Like, so everybody knows and loves Edith, and I cried. Like I watched it like 3 nights ago, and I was like, wow. I was just weeping, like alone. Thankfully, because I don't want my wife and kids to see me.
So that was the 8th season.
Yes.
Her 50th birthday.
Yes.
Which would make her your age.
Mm-hmm.
When that show started. Like if it was 8th season.
Oh, right. Yes, right. Like at the beginning of the season. Yeah, like she was like 42.
Yeah,
okay, right?
Crazy, right?
I know.
I mean, when I saw that cast photo a couple weeks ago, it's like, Archie Bunker was 48 when the show started, and he looks 20 years older
Carol
than
O'Connor,
me. Carol
right.
O'Connor, right? I mean, it's like.
Anyway,
where are you watching these? And don't say in the living room. I will punch you in the neck. What station is this?
One of the the lo-fi channels, like one of those standard definition channels called
Not Me TV.
It's in that ilk. It's called Get TV. I don't know if it's on your thing. Are we still recording? Like,
are we out? All right, we're wrapping up. I though this week watched a documentary called Doom: The Untold Story of the Roger Corman Fantastic Four. And
is it Roger Corman?
Roger Corman. Do you know who Roger Corman is?
Wasn't he like a bigger producer?
King of the B movie.
Yes.
I mean, if you look it up, and I'm not exaggerating, I'll be stunned if he has any less than 400 movie credits, to his name. And, he was kind of like, Ed Wood on steroids. I mean, he just cranked them out. And it's funny, you put out 400 of them and you're going to have a couple hits. He actually had a couple hits here and there throughout his career. But so prolific in a time where, movies were still shot on film. So it wasn't like he could just, with his iPhone and all this stuff make it. So, I mean, he really had to spend some money, but it's amazing the cost cutting he did and the deals he would make.
He's still around.
He is still around, yeah. Does it say how many? Are you on his IMDb?
Yes.
How many movies does it have him credited with creating?
For producer, he has 415 credits.
What did I say off the top of my head? Like I said, he has at least 400, right?
Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, his more recent hits are Abduction, Cobra Gator, Death Race 2050, and Sharktopus versus Whale Wolf. Sharktopus versus Whale Wolf. Paul, can I get a little Sharktopus versus Whale Wolf music?
Sharktopus with your tentacles. So he's done over 400 movies. He's only made one movie that's never been released. And it was this mid-'80s Fantastic Four. And the documentary is spellbinding. I mean, spellbinding. Long story short, the person who owned the rights to Fantastic Four approached him and said, hey, I'm going to put in $750,000. This other distributor is going to put in $750,000. We have $1.5 million. We want to make this Fantastic Four movie. Now, $1.5 million is nothing to make a superhero movie. However, in Roger Corman's world, it was a lot of money. Like everybody from his company is like, that's 3-4 times more money than we've ever had for any movie ever. We can definitely do this. And this documentary talks with all the actors, everybody from the editor to the director to the assistant director to the casting guy. There was a journalist who was on set every day for one of the bigger, movie fan scenes and stuff like that. And all the people working on it knew it was going to get a theatrical release. Now, Roger Corman was kind of the king of videos. Like when videos came out, the straight-to-video market, he pretty much pioneered the straight-to-video market. And so very, very, very few of his things actually saw the big screen. But this is a Marvel production. Now, granted, it's 15 years before Marvel is Marvel. And this is at a time where Marvel had sold off a lot of properties to sidebar a little bit, Fantastic Four was Stan Lee's favorite property. When Stan Lee moved his way up and finally became helm of Marvel, he was promoted to captain of the Titanic moments after it hit the iceberg. And so Marvel was dying, and they had to license off different properties. He also created the Fantastic Four. That was his first creation as head of Marvel, and it kept Marvel going for another 10 or 15 years. It literally saved it. So he's always had a passion. Now, I've known they've made several different Fantastic Four high-budget movies, and none of them have done well. And some of them have had huge actors in it. Chris Evans was Johnny Flame in one of the iterations. And I think they've made 2 different iterations in the past, 15 years, where they've had sequels. Like, they didn't do well, but well enough where you could get a sequel, and maybe they're turning a corner. But it was one of those things where Marvel, again, wasn't Marvel yet. Fantastic Four was one of the properties at one point Marvel had to license out the movie rights to keep afloat. It's like, we're not going to be able to publish this much comics unless we come up with $1 million by noon tomorrow. So they license out the movie rights. The person who approached Roger Corman had the movie rights. The movie had to be in production by the end of the year. And this was September, October. And the only person who could legitimately get a movie shot in that time was Roger Corman. So he went to Roger Corman, made the movie, and they talked about everything, how they had to, how the casting processes, the filming, where they came up with the sets, everything. And then, the movie was being shelved, but everybody still wanted to make this movie see the light of day. So the director, who went on to do something else, at nights and weekends after they were done editing or using the telecine, doing his next project, he would stay there for 4 or 5 hours a night. The composers who had legit careers, they were coming in and scoring with real orchestras. Went to Capitol Records, a 60-person orchestra, scoring the movie. The actors were coming in doing voiceovers, like the guy who played Doom. I forget his first name. I think it's Joseph Culp, Robert Culp's son. They had a couple other actors, management was kind of half watching the documentary, and she's like, oh, he was in Last Starfire. So they had real actors doing this movie. And it's funny, one of the production assistants who, I guess he described himself as a low grade hoarder, has kept every notebook and every casting call sheet he's ever worked on. And there were some huge names who came in on audition for this thing. One of the big problems with the Fantastic Four movies is the reason why Elastigirl works and the Incredibles and Mr. Fantastic. That's a creepy superpower, to be able to shrink your hand under the door and extend the hand up to unlock it from the other side. I don't care how much CG you have. It just looks fucked up. In a cartoon format, it looks great. It's fine.
And when it's done by a teenage girl, less creepy. Less creepy.
So what ends up happening is they get the movie done, but the distributors are like, yeah, we're not great. I'm glad you're done. Sure, go ahead and go to festivals and do whatever. And they, the actors on their own dime decide, okay, we're gonna get this in theaters and go to speaking. We're going to go to the Comic-Cons. Now, granted, again, Comic-Cons 20 years ago were me and you going to see it.
The 2 guys from Saturday Night Live, John Lovitz and Tom Hanks.
We couldn't get any lower.
And our descent continues.
Comic-Con in San Diego when I got to LA was a one-day thing. So they end up getting a world premiere at the Mall of America, which you know of the Mall of America. And they're all going, and they're flying out on their own dime. And Roger Corman's like, well, we don't have any money from the production studio to promote this, but I can give you 1,000 stills, for you to sign there. I can give you basically swag to bring. They didn't have money to fly the actors out, but they did come up with the money to fly the Dr. Doom suit out in a special case and all this kind of thing. And they all have their tickets. They're all out there. They're all booked. And they get a cease and desist letter from Fox, who yeah, we now own this property. And it was one of those things where somebody basically came, like the Men in Black, came and took all the copies of everything. And even the director was working at a project over at Fox, and he admitted without saying, I actually broke in. It's like, well, a door was ajar and I walked in, like, no copies. Nobody has ever seen this movie. So the actors never even saw the movie. Like, the premiere was the first time everybody was going to see it. They get a cease and desist letter. Nobody ever knows what happens. Like, Roger Corman wouldn't say what happened. Nobody. It's the only film that Roger Corman has produced that's never seen the light of day. The shittiest. We have 8 cents to make this movie and 3 days to do it. He found a way to get it done, and it got to Blockbuster, and the 3-cent movie made 10 cents, and everybody along the way was happy with it. This is the only movie that ever got shelved. And what ended up happening is the guy who owned it knew he had to get it shot because Marvel was trying to get it back and Fox was trying to get it back, and they were planning on doing a big budget movie with it, and they would have to buy him out because the rights would extend for like another 10 years if he was in production. He would then own the movie rights to the sequel, to the project, for a franchise for the next 10 years. He didn't even tell Roger Corman this. It was never going to see the light of day. Never going to see the light of day. Now, what ended up happening...
Why do I even need to see this documentary now? This is so enthralling.
No, it's just to hear the whole thing and by better people. And to hear the actors talking about the process of, actual working actors, like would leave the set of the sitcom they're now on 2 years later because the guy got the VO room for an extra 4 hours if they could come in and he could redo his lines for Doom and all these other things. But one of the women was at a party, and she's like, and somebody recognized her, and for like 3 or 4 hours, because I couldn't tell if he was hitting on me, but I know you from somewhere, blah blah blah. And then later up in the party comes up and he called her by a character's name from the movie, and he's like, yes. How do you know that? I just watched it. What do you mean you just watched it? Bootleg copy. And I mean, so these bootleg copies started to go out. And it's funny. So the director was talking, and he goes, yeah, I guarantee you, I know what happened. He goes, I used to go, and he named the place. I was surprised he didn't say I went to a post house. He went to Lightning Dubs. If anybody has a wormhole they want to climb down, Lightning Dubs was a chain of post houses in Los Angeles that around the mid-2000s got busted because the screeners that would go out every year for the Academy, they did them for 20 plus years. And the tape ops would always make their own copies and stuff like that. But there was one that ended up being watermarked. And when somebody made some copies and passed it around to their friend, they figured out exactly what post house this went to. It was the one that was on Buena Vista or Olive Ave in Burbank, and they shut it down. Like Lightning Dubs actually was a big publicly traded company that actually had to close and reformat and reopen under like Lightning Media.
Schmeightning Dubs.
Seriously, it was something like, but it did. It cost them tens of millions of dollars for making. But here's the director. It's like, yeah, I guarantee you, before they closed everything down, when we went to make a screener for the studio, some tape up in the middle of the night was like, oh man, this is Fantastic Four. I'm going to make a copy for myself. And you can see the quality of the copy. I mean, this is a dub of a dub of a dub of a dub of a dub long before digital. And you could tell, but people are buying them. And it's like, I think it was Robert Culp or Jonathan Culp was at some signing for some other project. And he walked over, and a guy had all these. And look, I've bought tons of bootleg stuff that's never seen the light of day, like fan made Batman movies or whatever, like the Batman versus Predator versus Aliens that went around like 20 years ago. And you would see the guy sell it, or all the Bruins fight tapes that we used to buy at like flea markets.
Yeah, they would be traded on the same circuits as like baseball cards and.
Right.
Yeah.
And he walked over.
I think I saw Gordon Jump's character in one of those card shows.
He ended up saying, oh my God, blah, blah, blah. And the guy's like, yeah, that's me on the back. And you could see the picture. The guy's like, oh, great. $10. So he bought his own copy. So nobody saw it for like 10, 15 years later till it started circulating at card shows and at the different comic book conventions and stuff like that. And nobody literally for 20 years knew why it got scrapped. And the guy who ended up being the bad guy or just the businessman who kept it a secret. I think the director said, he goes, well, he really lived by if you want to keep a secret, only tell 2 people and then kill them both, and so he did. He had to license, so Stan Lee and Marvel and Fox had to go through him in order to do the big budgets. And he got a producer credit on it was 10 years later when they finally made the Fantastic Four, and it was like a $75-80 million feature or stuff like that. Yeah, so he parlayed his $750,000 and whatever into that. But it's called Doomed: The Untold Story of the Roger Corman Fantastic Four, and I didn't do it justice. It's great. It's Amazon Prime,
Of course. And now, follow-up question: have you seen the bootleg Fantastic Four?
No, but I will. I mean, this is something I'm going to buy post haste. But it was just last night that I saw this. That's why I'm so excited about it today. Because I haven't been watching any terrestrial TV or listening to radio, and I won't be for 3 months.
A little sidebar: did you know that the producers of a certain Superman movie that you don't like to mention, Superman 4, they were in the works to develop a Marvel Spider-Man movie. They were, that was like the next in line. Like if the if Superman 4 was going to be a smash hit, it was not. Of course, they were going to do.
We don't know that. Had they ever made Superman 4, maybe it would have been a smash. But where they stopped after 3, we'll never know. We'll never know.
Right. And the Stanley Cup Finals went to Game 6.
Hey!
Denial ain't just a river in Egypt, is it, folks?
But yeah, this Doomed documentary, I put on par with the Death of Superman Lives.
Okay. What about Perfect Bid? The Price is Right documentary?
Well, nothing touches that.
Of course not. Or Big Bucks, the Press Your Luck scandal.
Which we've already referenced today.
I know. I just want to talk about Press Your Luck for another hour.
And I don't blame you.
But that's enough.
Let's call Rodney. Get him over here.
Yes. All right, so that's enough yapping out of me. Hopefully you enjoyed this hour, because I will have edited down our 2-hour rant to a tight hour.
Good luck.
Yeah. But don't forget that this week and on Friday, June 21st, at Sally O'Brien's in Somerville, you can see not only Dave Mirabella and the Rationales, but you can see Dan Cray and Beyond Id, which consists of our friend Jacques and our sometimes friend Sean.
Always our friend.
No, he's always our friend. I'm just showing
it's just hard to give him a big hug when he doesn't show up.
But you can see them Friday, June 21st, Sally O'Brien's in Somerville. Show starts at, I think, 8. And a good time will be had by all. Tickets, I'm sure, are available at what, Ticketmaster?
If anybody who listens to this podcast wants to be put on the guest list, you can tweet us at Carnival Podcast, at the Jacques 4, or at OptiGrabber.
Leave me out of this.
No, literally, if anybody wants to go, I'll just put them on the guest list. I mean, it's like anybody plus one, wants to go. If you have to suffer through this,
does Rodney like? Is he a big Beyond Id fan? Because maybe if we can coax him to come out to the,
I think
the East
go
Coast,
to all the Worcester shows, but yeah, to get him on a Friday night to battle to go to Slummerville,
probably not.
But anybody else, that includes you, Stephen Cole.
Yeah, come on down. So that's enough talk out of us. Enjoy the rest of your week, everybody. This is Joe and Jacques signing off. Gotta go to the show, baby. Yeah. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I think I'm having a stroke. I think I'm having the first signs of a stroke. Jacques, please call 911 and don't forget.
lights, reckless dreams, promises you'll never keep. You'd slow it down if you knew how. Take control, shut it down, but it's too late to change it now. You know you'll never win. This won't take long. You're caught in a tailspin. Just relax, the brakes are gone. Just relax, the brakes are gone. You know you'll never win. This won't take long. You're caught in a tailspin. Just relax, the brakes are gone. You know you'll never win. This won't take long. You're caught in a tailspin. Just relax, the brakes are gone. Just relax, the brakes are gone.